Hi everybody, it's Michelle and I'm back with some important information that I left out of my drawing down the source light and the clearing your personal energy. There are some issues that can happen if you do this too well. And I have mentioned that if you don't ground the energy properly, there can be issues, but I didn't actually sort of explain what to do if this happens, because especially if you're very new at working with energy, or if you happen to be going into areas where there's a lot of paranormal activity happening and the energy messes with your energy, there's a lot of stuff that can happen that feels bad, feels like an attack. Drawing down the light, you can actually feel like you're being attacked, or you can get sick. What happens is your personal vibration gets raised too quickly. Your body's not used to it. So you've got like a normal personal vibration and you bring in this fast one in, and it can shake you up. And I've mentioned that when you ground the energy, that helps to keep that from happening. But as an energy worker for many, many years, and a lot of my friends, many, many years, we sometimes forget to mention the little nuances of energy work, especially when I'm saying to someone, well, this is how you clear, it's really easy. It is, but it can create a bunch of problems. How do you know if the energy that you now have is too hot for you to handle? Maybe you're going to a paranormal site and you're clearing yourself and you're not used to doing that. Maybe you're clearing your house, you're really concerned about something, you might not know what it is, it feels bad or wonky, and you're doing a lot of drawing down the light. You are grounding the energy exactly the way I taught you how to do it. But suddenly, you still feel like you're being attacked. You may be getting headaches or migraines. You might be just feeling generally sick, tired, can't get enough sleep. Maybe it feels at nighttime like you've drank 6 coffees through the day, or you were drinking, certain cola drinks that have massive amounts of caffeine, and you're just sort of like wired. Perhaps some of the health issues that you normally have are enhanced for no real reason. I have a lot of different health issues. I'm diabetic, I'm on insulin, I have vein damage, I have neuropathy, all parts of being a diabetic for a very long time. And most of the time it's under control, most of the time. I'm having issues with blood pressure and a bunch of stuff. I also have a lot of sensitivities to food. And I find a lot of energy workers do seem to have sensitivities to a lot of things. And the reason that happens is whatever the food is that you're eating, it's not an allergy as such, because allergies is anaphylactic shock. So technically it's a sensitivity to something. But what it really is that it does not match the vibration of your body. So it's either too fast or too slow, and it's messing up. So you may be getting things like diarrhea, constipation, a mixture of both, nausea. Like there's a number of things that can happen to you, and it's caused by good, wonderful source energy. So what do? Perhaps you're somebody who was worried about stuff going on in your house. You've been doing exactly what I said. You've been doing it several times a week. But because you've never done energy work before, you're thinking that, well, the house must be getting worse because I feel like I'm being attacked. So what do? You bring down source, you ground your energy, you do it even more and more, and the situation gets worse and worse. It's not an attack. Your body can't handle the amount of energy that you're putting through it at this time. And everybody's body is different. Someone might be able to do it several times, never have an issue. It all depends on your personal body, where you're at the time, and this changes over the years. So I've been having some issues the last little while. And of course, I was going through my diet. Did I eat wheat? Did I eat dairy? And I'm going through thinking, what the heck is going on? Because I've modified my diet to try and regulate my blood pressure and a bunch of stuff, because I have vein issues, which is sort of it's not a newer issue, but it's escalating to the point that it's becoming a newer issue because I've been diabetic a long time. I've had vein damage a long time. I'm 60, life happens, and sometimes it's a pain in the ass. And I just couldn't figure out what was going on with me. Well, for the past month and a half, I've been doing some very serious energy work. And we're talking globally, like energy work that's massive, not just, oh, I got a little issue over here, I'll just draw down a little light. And even people like myself, my friend, my master teachers, the people that I know that do Reiki all the time, they know to ground, and they know when there's an issue that you need to address it right away. But sometimes you misread the signs as something else. Like I misread the signs, well, I must have eaten this wrong, or I must have done this wrong, or maybe my potassium level's off, which could be. Like I'm always trying to balance everything, and then I forget. You've been doing all this work. Do you think that perhaps the energies you are using are much higher than you've ever used before, and perhaps, even though you're used to doing energy work, you're screwing some things up? Number one, when drawing down the light under any circumstance, and I didn't mention it in the other videos, good old plain water. You need to replace the water in your body, because what happens is you do lose a lot of water and a lot of electrolytes because of the vibration and the frequency that you're using. It just happens. No herbal teas or coffee or pop or soda water. You want plain old filtered lovely water that, and you've got to remember to do it kind of immediately. That will save you getting a headache. Headache is probably one of the first clues that the energy is a little bit too high or too off. So a headache is one of the first simple things to realize, oh crap. So, okay, drink your water, you're doing that, that's great. How can you physically, when you've got a lot of energy and you're trying to ground and you're doing all these things, you can just ground energy without drawing down the light. And that's basically using your breaths, picturing the earth below you, and just breathing in the energy of the earth up to heart, and then pushing it back down through your body. And you can do that several times, and you imagine the energy roots going to wherever it is that you like. It could be going to crystals, it could be going to amethyst, it could be going to hematite. Hematite is a very good grounding stone. Tourmaline is a very good grounding stone. Their black stones really seem to be the best grounding stones. Not sure why. Shungite, which comes from Russia, is sort of a very special type of coal, kind of. It's hard to explain. Probably one of the best grounding stones in the world that's also a bit expensive, but really good too. You can connect to that without actually owning a piece. You can take a look on the internet what it looks like. You can envision it in the ground, and you can connect to that. So you've got your little roots down there, and you can send that grounded energy everywhere, seeing it going through and then back down. You might take several breaths in and then several breaths to blow it around your body and then back down to ground. That's a very easy way to ground and try and get that excess energy geared back to that's a very simple one. So you're drinking your water, you've done that. Perhaps you're still having major issues. One of the biggest things out there, grounding, is copper. I do a lot of beadwork, copper wire. I always have copper wire in the house. This is an old stove plug, I think. When you take the white part off, you can see that there's the grounding wire, and then the two ones that hook up the live and the, I forget what they're called. I took electronic courses or electricity courses way back in the 70s. There's proper words for these, and I can't remember what they are. But anyway, you can, if you've got old cords around and you don't have the money to go to the hardware store and buy $40 worth of copper wire, or I forget what the wire's called, but it's got like little holes in it, and you can put it around things and you can tighten it. I'd call it strapping, but I don't think it's that. That wire's really nice to use, but it's expensive and it's way past my budget. So if you go to a mission store, a reuse store, we used to call them Amity stores, Value Village, find some old plugs. You know, if you have to take a piece out and wire it together so that you can get it long enough to use, and I'll tell you how you're going to use it in a minute. This, you got to be my age to know what this is. You got the little adapter on the back from the television antenna, and inside you've got a very fine wire, copper wire, that comes from both sides. So you can't really use these much for anything anymore, and cost you nothing if you can find them in one of these types of stores or in your basement in that junk box. And what you're going to do with it is you're going to get a spike. Now I don't know if you can see behind me if I move the chair. They're like railway tie spikes. Hopefully you can see that. And you are going to find a spot where you can either sit or stand comfortably somewhere, maybe by the front stoop of your house, maybe the back porch, somewhere that is, you know, available to you. You're going to put the spike into the ground. Before you do, you're going to take your copper wire and you are going to wrap the end around very securely 2 or 3 times. And because it has that little lip, very easy to do that. I didn't have a big hammer, so I used a giant stone and I tapped it down into the ground. And then you're just going to bury it over. A good thing to do is to put a little stone or something to remind you where you put it, because sometimes you might later on want to find it. So you can put a stone or something near there, like a marker. And you're going to take the wire to, and it doesn't have to be a long distance. Like if it's just you have a stoop with 3 steps in front of your house, you can do it at the bottom there. You can do it so that the wire comes up into your porch. With mine, it's by the front door at the side of the house. I put the wire up and through, and because there's a space at the bottom of the door, I brought it into the little, I don't know what the word is. It's like a little inside door before you get to the other door. It's very small. And what I did was I bent this I took the end and I curled it so that it wasn't sharp, and I made like a handle. And I have a nail in the wall that I just sort of hook it on. And when the energy is really bad and I need to ground, I don't think about anything. I just hold that wire in my hand and I just do it 5 minutes, 10 minutes, until you'll notice a difference right away. Sometimes you will feel like a spark or a shock, and that's like you've built up such a big electrostatic bunch of energy that's like, whoo. So I have had that happen. You don't want to do this in a thunderstorm or something like that. You don't want to be holding copper wire, you know, just out there. Like, use common sense. There's a lot of copper products out there. There's grounding mats. They work well if you use them, and they're expensive. You can buy copper socks. Copper socks are interesting. They're made for people with arthritis and neuropathy, and it does help. But after a couple of months of wearing them, I found that the copper wire within the material itself, although you don't feel it when you put it on. I mean, they have different colored material there, so this is where the copper is. After a few months of wearing it, it was starting to break down, and I could feel it actually jabbing me in the foot because I have neuropathy and extra sensitive feet. I could feel it where someone else might not. So I can't really recommend copper socks. They're nice if, let's say, you want to put them on, put your feet up, watch TV for a little while, and then take them off. But not for everyday use, because copper, it's so fine. It's finer than like this stuff. It breaks very easily and can create new problems. So I don't recommend that, but that product is out there. And I'll go back to the most easiest, like this is kind of, okay, these are sort of, you got to do a little work to do that. The very first time someone talked to me about grounding, she didn't call it that because she didn't know that's what it was. It was in 1979, I think. And it was a friend of mine who was a high priestess. She was Wiccan. And we lived in Hamilton at the time, where I had so much paranormal stuff going on in the 70s. Like, it was just a giant horror show. And that has to do with the limestone in the mountain and the water and a lot of stuff, which I'll talk about at some point in the video because the stories are amazing. She came to the conclusion that part of the problem with living in the city is the ground is covered. The sidewalks are covered. The road is covered. When you go to your house, you walk up a paved, like, sidewalk or a drive. The house is completely, encased in cement, like the foundation. She says, so people don't touch the ground anymore. And she's totally right. So one of the things that she did while she's explaining to me, I had a revelation. And, Lord love her, she really did. And it wasn't until years afterwards that I'm sorry, my dress just went under the wheel of my chair. It wasn't until years later that I realized what she was doing. She didn't know what she was doing, but she knew that it helped. And we were walking past this beautiful front yard of someone's house that was like manicured perfectly. And she's just popped her shoes off, walked into the yard and went, "Come here." And I'm like, "What?" She goes, "Just do it." So I took my shoes off, and we weren't in the yard very far. We were like this far, like 2 feet, boom, boom. We're just standing on the edge, not in the yard exactly, just on the edge by the sidewalk. And it felt amazing. I cannot tell you how amazing it was. We were at that time doing a lot of paranormal work. We were doing Ouija boards. Don't get me started on that. Someday I'll do a video on that, about the dangers of Ouija boards. Ouija boards are good and bad. Some of the best paranormal people started with things like Ouija boards because they were curious. And because of that, then their work progressed. That is very rare. Most people that start out with spirit boards get into big trouble, so I'm not recommending that. But at the time, we were using spirit boards. We were also going to lots of different haunted places, and we were doing a lot of stuff that we didn't know what we were doing. When I was in a place where there was a problem, because I didn't know how to guide my energy, I would just send out this stuff. The best way to describe how it looked to me was like smoke. And I was sending out white light. I didn't know that's what I was doing. Because I could feel it coming in from the top of my head, and I could see it coming out of my eyes and going to the area that I thought was extra haunted or extra bad or whatever it was. I also sent it to ambulances. I sent it to accidents. Every time we drove by a hospital, I sent it to hospitals. So I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew I had to do it. So there was a lot of energy work happening. So when we stepped on that grass for the first time, and I was actually physically being properly grounded, it was amazing. And it was like this crack, like this big sort of, you couldn't hear the crack, but it was like this crack. And it was like, wow. And something that I did do for years before that, and I didn't even know that I was doing it, is I would love to go down near the water to the beach where there's a sandy beach, not a stony beach like I have here, and put my toes down in the sand, like stand flat with the water just coming up with my toes into the sand. I didn't know that I was grounding, but that's a really simple way of grounding, with the water and the sand. And sand, of course, most sand has a very high silica count, which is quartz. No better way to ground and clear your energy. So there's very simple things. Standing on grass, contact with the bare earth. Doesn't have to be for a long time. But if you have too much energy going through, you need to ground that. And the perfect example of how this works, I guess, imagine 1970s shag carpet. Not just shag carpet. It wasn't pretty like beige shag carpet or white shag carpet. No. It was like yellow and orange. Disgusting shag carpet. But my mom and dad loved it. They thought that was the best frickin' carpet ever. And what do? Older sister, 2 younger sisters. You do the shag carpet shuffle, and you shock them. How does that work? Well, a static charge builds up in your body, just like source energy is doing, and it's looking for a place to go, somewhere that has a different charge. So if I'm positive, my sisters were negative, and I'd go over and zap them. And if you did it in the dark, you could see the blue spark go, and it was frickin' awesome. And, you know, they'd yell and cry and carry on, and I'd say, well, do it to me. And they'd be like, ch-ch-ch-ch-ch. And we'd do this for hours, going back and forth. The same way that a balloon, if you take the balloon and rub it on your head, you can stick it onto the wall and stuff. It all has to do with the charged particles and the exchange of positive, is it neurons? No. Particles. I'm just going to use the word particles because right now science is out of my head. But it has to do with the positive and the negative, and attracting and doing that. So in a way you can understand, okay, I've done that as a kid. I know it works. So when you have too much source energy in your body and you're standing on bare ground, or you could be, you know, if you have problems standing for a long time, sit in a lawn chair with your feet on the ground. Just make sure that there's no glass or stones or things around. Like, have your shoes with you. You know, be safe about it. Go down to the beach and sit on the beach, if beaches are even open right now. A nearby little creek. There's a little creek just down from me that I wouldn't put my feet in, but you could technically go down and sit close to it with your feet on the bare ground. Sometimes sitting on a big boulder or stone is incredibly helpful to ground. So all of these things you need to remember. And if you're doing something like that, don't forget your water, because when you are exchanging energies, your body is going through changes. You may not be able to see it, but technically it's happening. And it's all got to do with quantum physics and particles and string theories and all of these things which nobody on this site wants to know about unless they're really into science, because it's like, I just want to go out and I want to go to a haunted place, or I want to, you know, get some pictures of orbs or whatever. And that's fine, but you'll also need to know how to protect yourself. So, cheers. Till next time, I hope you stay safe. And just remember that sometimes things like too much energy, good energy, can feel like an attack when really you just need to reground yourself. So easy peasy. If you have any questions that you would like me to address or talk about, I would like to do that. I would also like to talk about some of my experiences in Hamilton, which is how I learned to get to the point where I am now and understand things the way I understand them now. So it takes a long time. This isn't instant. I can't just give you the instant answer, boom. and you understand perfectly what's going on. So have a wonderful and safe rest of the summer or however long this thing goes on for, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.